During the emotional retrospective moment at our wedding, my husband took one glance at the screen before his eyes turned red with rage. He grabbed a chair and smashed the screen in a frenzy. I stood at the altar, tears of joy streaming down my face as I laughed. I was the one who played that video. I had been waiting for this moment for so long. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Miss Doris Nelson and Mr. Garrett Dean are deeply in love. Let's witness their beautiful love story together. The wedding officiant spoke slowly as Garrett gripped my hand tightly. His handsome features were filled with anticipation, and his usually stern face broke into a broad smile. He whispered in my ear, "Doris, we do have beautiful memories together." Beautiful memories? Does he mean when he held my head underwater for 5 minutes? Or when he locked me in a cage? After Garrett fell in love with me, he destroyed anyone who had ever watched my performance. He said with him around, no one in City S would dare speak ill of me. I glanced at the wealthy guests attending the ceremony. Their faces wore congratulatory smiles, but their eyes flickered with mockery. How ridiculous. The most eligible bachelor of City S, Garrett Dean, marrying a plaything that was once confined in a cage and ridiculed by others. As the love story music began to play, Garrett looked up at the screen expectantly. Suddenly, harsh electronic music blared through the speakers. Instead of our wedding photos, the screen showed videos of me being abused. In the video, my voice was hoarse from crying. The footage was crystal clear, the sound perfectly audible, but all thanks to Garrett. After all, he recorded it himself. When the video appeared, Garrett's eyes instantly turned bloodshot. He became like a wild beast. He grabbed a chair and violently smashed the big screen, striking it again and again until it was completely destroyed. Standing on the stage, I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Happy wedding, Garrett. This is my wedding gift to you. Do you like it? I said. I clutched my stomach, almost doubling over with laughter. Not a single person in the audience dared to whisper. Everyone in City S's wealthy circles knew how filthy and despicable I was. Yet no one dared to laugh at me. Garrett tried to make amends, but I could never forget. On my 22nd birthday, they opened the curtains of the cage where I had been starved for 3 days. They threw in a live chicken. They laughed so loudly then. Why aren't they laughing now? I've never been good at studying, rather slow actually. When I took my A-levels, I only managed to get into a community college, while my younger sister got into a Russell Group university. Unfortunately, our parents died in a motorcycle accident. I patted my head and told my sister, "Effie, you go to university. I'll take care of you." She cried and said she wanted to work in a factory with me, but I scolded her harshly. I still remember that summer in our rented flat, when Effie swore to me she would make something of herself and not waste my sacrifice. Her university fees were £3,000, and she needed £1,000 for living expenses. So I started working, doing whatever jobs I could find. At first, without experience, I just worked as a waitress, clearing tables and washing dishes. I wasn't earning much, so I lived frugally and saved money for my sister. Actually, instant noodles aren't that economical. Do you know what's the most cost-effective food? It's plain noodles. A 2-pound pack of noodles could last me a week. While I was enjoying my noodles with a splash of vinegar, my sister called asking, "What are you eating, Doris?" I pressed my face close to the video call, forcing a smile. "I'm at McDonald's. The burgers are delicious. You should try some too." McDonald's 3-pound burgers were our idea of luxury food. When she graduated from high school, I stood outside McDonald's for ages, circling 3 times, but couldn't bring myself to buy her anything. Effie worked hard at university. Once, when I visited her with bags of snacks, I found her in the cafeteria drinking free soup, soaking pieces of bread in it. Tears immediately rolled down my cheeks. I went over and ordered her a chicken chop rice. The 12-pound meal, she insisted she couldn't finish it. How could she not? The chicken portion wasn't even as big as her palm. We shared it, taking turns to take bites. Later, I thought this couldn't continue. I was earning too little. Without qualifications, I decided to become a delivery rider. It was harder work and more tiring, but the pay was better. Just when I started earning more, something happened to my sister. It was raining that day. More people tend to order McDonald's delivery when it rains. While I was riding my yellow scooter through the streets, the student advisor called me. "Are you Effie Nelson's sister?" Effie got into a fight with her classmates. I couldn't believe my sister would get into a fight. My sister was such a timid person, she wouldn't hurt a fly. When she was little, a boy in the seat behind her burned her hair with a lighter. And she didn't even dare tell the teacher. I quickly rode my scooter to her school. The rain was heavy, making the scooter slip. I fell once, scraping my knee. I was too worried to care. I just picked up the scooter and rushed on. When I arrived at the school, I saw Effie standing in the corner of the student advisor's office. She was biting her lip, holding back tears, silently watching the 3 girls in front of the advisor. Those 3 girls were well dressed, clearly city kids. They were all talking at once, listing my sister's supposed wrongdoings. She never joins our room gatherings, she's so antisocial. When we try to talk to her, she barely responds. When we ask her which celebrities she likes, she doesn't say anything. She wakes up at 7 in the morning, totally disturbing our rest. When our room wanted to pool money for an air conditioner, she said she couldn't afford it. Who can't afford a few £100s these days? The advisor was a young man who seemed overwhelmed by all the female students. He adjusted his glasses and stammered. "But you can't lock Effie out of the room all night." "Lock my sister out all night?" I immediately caught the key point and turned my eyes to the 3 fashionable girls. The leader, with pink nail polish decorated with little polar bears, blinked and mumbled. We were all asleep, nobody heard her knocking. My sister stood in the corner. And when she saw me arrive, her tears finally started falling. She'd always been like this. She never felt wronged until someone who loved her showed up. With red-rimmed eyes, she said, "I'm sorry, sis, I caused trouble." I wiped her eyes and said, "You didn't cause trouble, they caused trouble for us." I stormed over, slammed my yellow helmet on the desk, and shouted at the advisor. "What kind of teacher are you? They locked my sister out of her room, and you're not punishing them? They didn't do it on purpose, they just didn't hear." The advisor tried to mediate, his voice getting smaller. The 3 girls were startled. They huddled together and pointed at me. "She's such a shrew. Working class people are so uncouth. I've never met someone like this in my life." They were all city people, all polite, while I was from the countryside, a shrew. I didn't care about anything else, I just didn't want my sister to be bullied. I said, "I don't care, I sent my sister here properly, and you locked her out. I need an explanation today." While the advisor tried to calm me down and mediate, I wouldn't let it go. Finally, the polar bear girl, named Mabel, got angry. She came over aggressively and said, "It takes 2 to tango. Why don't any of us like Effie? Maybe it's her own fault." My sister, such an honest girl. When she was little, she would cry for 3 days if her pet chicken died. What fault could she have? I instantly lost my temper and, without thinking, slapped Mabel. I never expected. That single slap would ruin the rest of my life and my sister's. That girl was crying and making a scene, but I ignored her. I pressured the student advisor to change my sister's room assignment. After the advisor arranged a new room for my sister, I gave her some advice. When I got home, I noticed my knee was bleeding heavily. And the blood had soaked through my trousers. The wound had stuck to my trousers. And when I peeled them off, the pain made my teeth chatter. I carelessly dabbed some antiseptic on it and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by loud knocking at my door. I lived in a cheap council flat that cost £300 per month, with the landlord's family living opposite. I thought it might be the landlord. When I opened the door, 3 men appeared. They quickly covered my mouth and restrained me. I smelled something similar to medical alcohol, then everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a filthy warehouse surrounded by dusty machinery and debris. A man sat in front of me, legs crossed, his shirt open at the collar exposing his chest. His sharp eyebrows were raised high, with a small scar breaking his left eyebrow. "Doris Nelson, you hit my girlfriend. Do you know who I am?" At that time, I didn't know who he was, so I defiantly replied, "Yeah, I hit her." "What are you going to do about it?" "Hit me back?" I had no idea he was Garrett Dean, the wealthiest and most powerful young man in the entire city. He didn't even care much for his girlfriend. He just suddenly wanted to torment someone. And unfortunately, that someone was me. That day, he asked, "Which hand did you use to hit Mabel?" Before I could answer, his leather shoes suddenly stomped on my hands. I screamed in pain. He smoked a cigarette, raising his eyebrows as if admiring the view, while his foot mercilessly ground into my hands. I was shaking with pain but stubbornly refused to beg. "Interesting," he said, watching me grit my teeth and break into a cold sweat. He casually pressed his cigarette butt against my forehead. With a sizzling sound, I felt like a hole had been burned into my forehead. The pain was so intense I wanted to roll on the ground. "You've got quite a backbone. I wonder if your sister has the same strength?" When he mentioned my sister, I immediately crumbled. My sister couldn't handle pain like I could. I couldn't let her suffer. It was my fault for hitting that girl in the first place. Trembling, I knelt on the ground and started banging my head against the floor. "Sir, it's my fault. I apologize. Please leave my sister alone. It was all my doing." I spoke shakily, continuously hitting my head on the ground. My head was buzzing, but I had only one thought. I had to protect my sister. "Fine, I'll leave your sister alone, but I'm not done yet." The man pulled me up, smiling slyly. "If you can hold back your tears until the end, I'll leave your sister alone." He clapped his hands, and 3 men surrounded me. I can't remember how I survived that day. I remember crying, remember writhing on the ground like a fish on a chopping board. I remember being beaten, blood pouring from my nose. At first I could smell it, then I couldn't anymore. They were brutal with women. When they crushed my hands with their shoes, I didn't cry. When they pulled my hair and slapped my face, I didn't cry. When they twisted my arms behind my back, I still didn't cry. Garrett got bored and said, "This isn't fun if she won't cry. Let's bring her sister here too." Instantly, I broke down. Tears mixed with blood and dirt fell to the ground as I clutched Garrett's legs. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please, leave my sister alone." Someone like Garrett Dean was the type I'd never normally encounter. His family's connections ran deep in City S, where his word was law. If he wanted to play with me, no one could save me. I'd thought about going to the police. But the moment I stepped into the station, he sent me photos of my sister. He gripped my neck and said, "I'll let you go when I'm bored of you. The wealthy have many ways to amuse themselves." Having found this new toy, he couldn't wait to show me off to others. At first, I was defiant and wouldn't listen to him, so he tortured me nearly to death. He held my head underwater in the pool for 5 minutes. He locked me in a dog cage for 3 days with only a chicken for food. You might think I could stand strong against such tyranny. Sadly, I wasn't that brave or noble. I learned to submit. Only submission kept me from being tortured to death. I'd already experienced humiliation when I'd handed out flyers after high school, begging people for their phone numbers. When Garrett saw my submission, he stopped torturing me. I endured it several times. Every night, I'd look at the stars through the window, calculating when I could die. I just needed to support my sister until she finished university, then I could die. What was the point of living anyway? Because Garrett controlled me, I couldn't deliver for McDonald's anymore. Not wanting my sister to know my situation, I swallowed my pride and begged Garrett for money. I remember clearly his mocking look that day. He gripped my face, smirking. "Finally learned to ask me for things? You have to give something to get something." That day he was drunk, his ears flushed red, and I trembled as I fingered his shirt buttons. He threw me to the floor, calling me filthy. I didn't give up, crying as I clung to his legs. I knew how pathetic I looked, but I had no choice. I needed money for my sister. I knew I was pretty. Many men had offered to keep me when I was working. Garrett couldn't resist my beauty either. I don't remember how I got through that night. Garrett held me in the bathtub and scrubbed me raw with a brush. After that night, Garrett became addicted. I didn't have to sleep in the cage in his room anymore. That was where his Tibetan Mastiff used to sleep. He let me sleep in his bed, holding me tight at night. He brushed my hair like grooming a dog, bought me pretty clothes to dress me up. He said, "You're just like the Tibetan Mastiff I had as a child." Yes, those same wet eyes. It was raised with mongrels by people who didn't know its worth. I loved that Mastiff so much, I beat it with a stick to tame it, to make it protect me. That Mastiff was just like you, covered in blood from my beatings. Still trying to protect that mongrel. I stayed silent as Garrett held my face and asked, "Tell me, isn't it such noble love, suffering with me for your sister's sake? Just like that stupid dog." Garrett loved listening to my phone calls with my sister. Saying my voice dripped with sweetness. He said, "Doris, talk to me like that too. I want to hear it." Under pressure, I awkwardly said a few words. Garrett didn't find it awkward, he enjoyed it. He said, "Doris, be as good to me as you are to your sister. I need someone sincere in my life too." I hid it so well. No one knew about what Garrett did to me, how I lost my dignity. One moment he was pulling my hair like a toy. The next I could video call my sister with a smile on my face. I asked her if she was doing well. She said she was doing great. Her dorm mates were all nice to her, and told me not to worry. I believed her. I really did. Later when my sister jumped from the building, I learned that Mabel hadn't left her alone. She accused my sister of stealing her money, spreading rumors about her being a thief. They found a stack of cash under my sister's bed. All the girls in her class isolated her. Every single one of them. No one would talk to her. Before class, they would throw her books from the front row to the back. No one would team up with her for group projects. My sister endured it all. She didn't want to tell me, didn't want to cause me trouble. Because I once told her, "We don't have parents anymore, we can't cause trouble. No one's here to clean up our mess." She always listened to me. She loved me the most. Then Mabel sent her the video of me being humiliated. Mabel said, "Look, Effie, this is your sister. Your sister is A." She pursed her lips and said that word. That was the first time my sister lost it. She went mad and started fighting with Mabel. Mabel said, "Garrett told me your sister becomes soft whenever we mention your name." My sister, such a clever girl, understood everything in an instant. She jumped from the 16th floor. The 16th floor. I remember her once pointing at tall buildings, saying, "Doris, I'll take you to live in a high-rise someday." I hugged her and said, "Then I'll count on you." She jumped without hesitation, sending me a text before she did. She wrote, "I can't be a burden to you anymore." I went mad when I heard the news. The school said my sister had depression and easily brushed the incident aside. I knelt at the school gates with a white banner until Garrett took me away, saying, "Don't embarrass me in public." At that time, Garrett was still dismissive. He said, "Now that your sister's dead, you can focus on being good to me." I went crazy with rage. For the first time, I lunged at him and bit him hard. He yelped in pain and kicked me aside. I lay on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Garrett, afraid I'd gone mad, came to comfort me, saying, "The dead can't come back, you need to look forward." To pacify my madness, he helped investigate. It was Mabel's doing. Garrett had sent my video to Mabel as a trophy. That's how Mabel could show it to my sister. Garrett had people hold Mabel down. But what's the use? My sister who would share even a small piece of chicken chop with me. My sister who, afraid of troubling me, would use the library computers instead of buying one for her computer science course. My sister who lied about staying at school during summer break but actually worked part-time jobs. She's gone. After my sister's death, I came down with a high fever. Garrett called a private doctor to give me an injection. He held my burning body and said, "Doris, I won't let you die. You still need to stay with me." I didn't want to take medicine. I secretly hid the pills in my palm and threw them under the bed. I despised this world, I despised Garrett Dean. And I hated those wealthy people who casually bullied others. When I wanted to die, Garrett asked me, "Don't you want revenge?" His scarred eyebrow furrowed tightly as he said, "Aren't you supposed to be strong? Your sister died, don't you want revenge?" His words pulled me back to reality. Revenge, revenge. 3 people were responsible for my sister's death. The first one was Mabel. Garrett wiped the tears from my face and said, "Doris, stay with me, I'll help you get your revenge." At some point, Garrett stopped calling me dog, stopped scolding me, and started calling me Doris. He wanted me to stay with him. Garrett's words weren't a question. For him, he never cared about my answer, he would do whatever he wanted. Garrett said, "Doris, from now on, you need to care for me like you did for your sister." He held my head close, repeatedly emphasizing the weight of the word family. Garrett had no family. From a young age, he knew he had many brothers. Only the child who most resembled their father would be brought home as the official Dean heir. Garrett's mother was strict. He would be punished in the dark room even for walking incorrectly. Your father would never walk that fast. Walking too quickly meant getting hit on the legs with a cane. The pain would teach him to change. Garrett kept many dogs. And from a young age, he would command them to attack his brothers. But when those brothers tried to kill him, those supposedly loyal dogs scattered and fled, failing to protect him. His mother, who raised him since childhood, escaped through a window, complaining, "If I'd known you'd be this useless, I wouldn't have wasted my time." After that night's attack, Garrett survived and was taken back to the Dean family. He became the Dean family's sole heir. And after his father died of heart disease, he became the head of the family. Garrett's favorite Tibetan Mastiff was never fully tamed. After Garrett killed it, he never kept dogs again. Garrett said, "Dogs are good, but they didn't choose me." Then, he looked at me dangerously and asked, "What do you think, Doris?" Garrett acted swiftly and decisively, taking Mabel to the same warehouse where I had once been held. However, the men who tied up Mabel weren't the same 3 who had held me captive. When I asked Garrett about those 3 men, his face darkened as he replied, "They've been taken care of." I knew Garrett's hands weren't clean. Mabel was filthy, her pink-painted nails broken and fingers bleeding, clearly showing signs of torture. She wept miserably, begging for mercy, calling Garrett's name, hoping he would show some compassion for old time's sake. Garrett acted as if he couldn't hear her and ordered his men to proceed. That's when I learned just how many ways they had to torture someone. They put her in a sack, hung it up, and beat it with boxing gloves. At first, you could hear screams from inside the sack, but then there was silence. Both my hands were shaking uncontrollably. Garrett, with a cigarette between his lips, asked, "Want to take a few swings?" I shook my head as tears streamed down my face. I was terrified. Mabel wasn't a common person like me. She came from money. Yet even this wealthy girl. When Garrett decided to deal with someone, he did it thoroughly. His influence ran deep. City S, being close to the border and far from the center, was Garrett's territory. The Dean family ruled here. Seeing my fearful tears, Garrett embraced me, laughing. "Look how scared you are, Doris. You're such a timid thing. As my woman, you'll need to be braver." That night, I had nightmares all night long. I realized one thing clearly, Garrett Dean wasn't human. Could I ever win against someone like him? This was deliberate. He deliberately showed me what happened to Mabel. Deliberately made me afraid, using fear to maintain his hold over me. I needed to stay calm and collected. Though I'd been with Garrett for nearly a year and a half. He'd only recently started being nice to me. I knew his hands weren't clean, but I had no proof. Now wasn't the time to challenge him. There was only one thing to do, wait. I had to stay by his side like a harmless pet, letting him stroke my soft belly. Until I could bite him when he least expected it. I would only get one chance. It had to be fatal. After Mabel went missing, the police came around several times. Mabel's parents caused quite a stir, but eventually were told that she had been kidnapped. After meeting someone online who lured her abroad. No one suspected Garrett. In City S, many people had died trying to cross borders illegally. After Mabel's death, I stayed with Garrett for 2 years. For those entire 2 years, I was the only woman in Garrett's life. Garrett had strong controlling and possessive tendencies. After being with him, I barely spoke to any other man. Then he erased everything from 3 years ago. Everyone who had watched my performance and mocked me. Garrett destroyed their lives completely. Once, a woman who was jealous of me came up to talk about my past. Before I could even frown, someone immediately covered her mouth and dragged her away. In all of City S, no one dared to look at me with contempt. They even sent me jewelry, begging me to put in good words with Garrett. In our 2nd year together, Garrett flew me to a private island in his jet where we spent 6 whole months. Those 6 months were magical for Garrett. During the day, he taught me in the villa. He seemed determined to shape me into his ideal version. He taught me to study. I had always struggled with academics, my memory wasn't great. And I lacked strong logical thinking. Yet Garrett tried teaching me business management and finance. I couldn't understand it at all. It was like trying to read hieroglyphics. It brought me to tears. Garrett found it terribly amusing. If you can memorize even a little bit, I'll reward you, he'd say. Garrett's rewards involved kissing me, holding me, touching me. Was this really rewarding me, or himself? I felt sick, but I still had to try hard to memorize. While Garrett was in meetings, I'd fall asleep trying to study. Once I woke up to find him drawing a crown on my forehead with a pen. When I opened my eyes, he looked somewhat flustered, his ears turning red as he avoided my gaze. "What are you doing?" "You're acting like those naughty boys from school," I said. "I never went to school," Garrett replied defensively, matter-of-factly. Garrett had grown up with just his mother. He'd never attended regular school. All his knowledge came from private tutors. His entire existence was meant to inherit the Dean family legacy. The Deans were like a cancer in the shadows, vast and corrupt. But money talks, and people kept flocking to join this underground kingdom. Garrett arranged a packed schedule of lessons for me. He even taught me to shoot, buying me a beautiful, delicate pistol. At the shooting range, he'd hold my hand steady and tell me to focus on the target. With his eyes narrowed dangerously, he'd ask, "See the dummy's head up there?" Bang! Garrett was an excellent shot. The glass head of the target dummy shattered instantly. I fired several shots but missed every time. "Doris, you have so much to learn," Garrett would say. I enjoyed learning to shoot and practice daily. At night, the island breeze turned cool as waves crashed against the rocks, spraying white foam. These were our rare peaceful moments. He'd hold my hand as we watched the sea, collecting random pebbles before holding me tight against the cold stone. He'd try to meld me into his very being. He'd call my name repeatedly, "Doris Nelson, I am your man." Once I learned to shoot. I pointed that little pistol at Garrett's forehead while he slept. Controlling my shallow breathing, his eyes suddenly flew open. In the darkness, his eyes gleamed like jewels, filled with cruel brilliance. He quickly grabbed it, smirking as he said, "I can't die. If I die, I can't be with you." "Garrett, why won't you just die?" "I hate you," I said. I pulled the trigger, but no bullet pierced his skull. As expected, the little pistol was just Garrett's tool to humor me. After each training session, all bullets were collected. I'd tried hiding some before but was quickly discovered. This doomed assassination attempt was my way of testing Garrett's limits with me. Garrett sat up and embraced me. I bit his shoulder hard enough to taste blood. "Doris, if I die, you'll surely marry someone else. I can't bear that. If I die, I'm taking you with me. Even if we go to hell, you must accompany me." Garrett spoke with a smile, but his gaze was uncompromising. He bit my finger hard. "You ungrateful little wretch." The following year, I discovered Garrett's secret. He operated under multiple identities, conducting business deals as Elijah and Anthony. He was involved with drug lords near the border. Recently, the border area had become unstable. Garrett began making more frequent trips. And the death toll in City S increased, catching the attention of authorities. A new police officer arrived in City S. Garrett invited him for dinner and smiled gently. You seem quite young. Why choose this remote place instead of a big city? The new officer was Henry Fletcher. Henry was intimidated by Garrett's dominant presence. His shoulders hunched, and his voice involuntarily lowered. There were fewer applicants here, so I got in, Henry replied. I studied Henry more closely. He appeared thoroughly frightened. Garrett played with his signet ring, saying, City S is a beautiful place with pristine nature and honest people. It's quite nice here. Smiling, Garrett pushed several gemstones across the table. City S is known for its gems. These are small trinkets. You can have them appraised at Jade Gallery. Though the stones weren't particularly valuable, each could fetch 300,000 pounds at Jade Gallery. Henry glanced briefly at them, afraid to touch or even look at them properly. Garrett laughed heartily, accustomed to everyone in City S fearing him. I remained silent, coldly playing with the tassels of my dress. Garrett wouldn't give me a phone or let me use one. Seeing me entertaining myself, he grew displeased and firmly gripped my hand under the table. Henry dropped his fork, and as he bent to retrieve it, he witnessed this. Annoyed, I pinched Garrett's palm. Garrett's smile only grew broader. After dinner, slightly drunk, Garrett pressed me against the car seat, his dark eyes fixed on me. Like a cat preparing to hunt in the darkness. You looked at him 13 times. What's wrong? Think I'm too old? Prefer younger men now? Garrett wasn't old. Despite his scarred eyebrow and dangerous air making him appear in his 30s. He was only 28. No, I said. Garrett spoke acidly. A useless coward who can't even breathe when I speak. Why waste your glances on him? He firmly held me down, kissing my forehead. Tonight, your punishment is to look only at me. I felt no sympathy for Henry. Firstly, because he seemed as submissive and weak as Garrett's other lackeys. Secondly, because those few glances at him resulted in Garrett punishing me by making me watch him, which made me sick. However, I encountered Henry several times. He would lower his head upon seeing me, terrified, hurrying to avoid me. He knew I was Garrett's woman, and his fear of Garrett extended to me. When he saw me, he seemed to wish he could disappear into the ground. When he saw Garrett, he'd serve tea and nod agreement to everything, showing none of a policeman's dignity, more like a frightened quail. His submissive behavior around Garrett irritated me. Garrett, knowing my dislike, was delighted. He couldn't hide his smile, saying, Not all men are like your man. In our 3rd year together, Garrett was carefully painting my toenails, holding my foot with gentle concentration. His usual harshness had softened, and with lowered brows and a smile, he showed an unexpected tenderness. Feeling the calluses on my feet, he grumbled. 3 years, and they're still not smooth. I gave him a light kick, but he didn't mind. As he continued painting my nails, Garrett casually mentioned, I'm planning to give you some business assets. Come to my study tomorrow to sign some documents. I froze for a moment. Seeing my expression, Garrett smirked, his sharp eyebrows raised high. What's wrong? Too happy to speak? I wasn't speechless from happiness. I was finally getting a chance to enter his study. Garrett always met those criminals in his study. The evidence of his dealings with them must be in there. Once inside his study, I carefully observed the layout. Garrett's study had a safe. He opened it and took out several contracts, proof of his assets. Noticing my gaze fixed on the safe, he raised an eyebrow. Surprised by how wealthy I am? He handed me some files casually, saying, Choose what you like from these, and I'll give them to you. I want them all, I said, looking at him. I expected him to frown, but instead, he affectionately pinched my cheek and said, My little gold digger. Then he handed me a pen to sign the documents. During the signing, Garrett received a phone call and left the study. The safe was still open when he walked out. The room suddenly became very quiet. I could almost hear myself swallowing. The antique clock on the wall chimed softly. This had to be a trap. Garrett wouldn't just present important items to me like this, especially knowing how much I hated him. But this was my only chance. If I could get evidence, I could find a way to send it to the police. What should I do? Look or not? The safe was like a devil's treasure, tempting me. I knew Garrett too well, he was too clever. I couldn't move. Fighting my urge, I kept staring at the open safe. The second shelf held more files mixed with some jewelry. The third shelf was odd, there was a red velvet box. Just as I tried to make out what was on the third shelf, Garrett's voice exploded next to my ear. His tone was emotionless as he said, "Doris." Trying to sound casual, I said, "Your safe is open." "What's on the third shelf?" Garrett smiled and opened the third shelf in front of me. He took out the red velvet box, and I could finally see clearly. Inside the elegant box was a paper rose made from a napkin. I remembered that rose. In our second year, on his birthday, he took me to a seafront restaurant and kept asking what I'd give him. I had no fondness for him then, only disgust. So I carelessly folded a napkin into a rose and tossed it to him. He wasn't angry. Instead, he played with it for a while before carefully tucking it into his suit pocket. I heard myself gulp and said, "You still kept it?" "It was the first gift you ever gave me." Garrett sighed. Though slightly disappointed, he still placed the paper flower back in its box. I said offhandedly, "I'll give you more in the future, no need to keep that one." At my casual words, Garrett's eyes suddenly lit up. His usually fierce gaze filled with joy and surprise. He said, "Doris, you said in the future you better not take that back." As soon as I said it, I regretted it. It was just a casual comment. But Garrett was overjoyed, holding me tight. "Doris, we have a future together." Then Garrett told me, "Doris, you're pregnant." "I'm pregnant." This is the most disgusting and infuriating thing that could happen to me. The man who killed my sister is still right in front of me. Every day, my nerves are stretched like a taut string. I force myself to smile, staying by his side to collect evidence against him. And now he tells me I'm pregnant? I'm going to have a child for an enemy, for a cold-blooded murderer. This child completely disrupts my plans. I need to gather evidence to bring him down. I don't want this burden. I remember the contraceptive pills I secretly took. Garrett had switched my medication. He had deceived me. I feel sick. I'm nauseated. I've become depressed. I refuse to eat. I hide in my room, ignoring Garrett when he tries to talk to me. The more compliant I was before, the more resistant I am now. "Whatever, Garrett," I say. "Just like before, you can hold me under the water tank. Lock me in a cage, curse at me, hit me, I don't care. I won't have your child." Garrett's eyes are like cold stars as he grits his teeth. "Doris Nelson, you ungrateful witch. You'll have this baby whether you want to or not. This is the fruit of our love. What love between us." I lie on the bed, turning my back to him, refusing to even look at him. Behind me, Garrett starts smashing things, breaking all the expensive vases and decorations in my room. He was the one who eagerly gave them to me, and now he's breaking them. Mental. I still refuse to eat. When he tries to feed me, I spit it onto the floor. I look at Garrett with hateful eyes until he finally snaps. "Doris, what do you want?" I say, "Why are you panicking, Garrett? When you locked me in that cage for 3 days without food, I survived just fine." Garrett stands before me, his 6'3" frame casting a shadow over me. Through gritted teeth, he says, "Doris, I'll get on my knees if you'll just take one bite. Don't you know you're carrying our child?" I do know. I know my body better than anyone, but I can't help it, I feel no love for this child. This child's existence was forced upon me by its father. Garrett controls everything about me. I had no way to prevent this pregnancy. I say, "Go on then, kneel." With a thud, Garrett immediately drops to his knees. A 6'3" man kneeling looks like a bear, absolutely ridiculous. Still kneeling, holding up the bowl of porridge, he says, "Doris, you heartless witch, will you eat or not?" I eat. The depression game was just the beginning. The real gift came at our wedding. How laughable Garrett is, he disregards the law, yet desperately wants a legally recognized marriage with me. Instead of going to the register office, he just had someone stamp our documents. Garrett never dreamed that I had kept that video for 3 years. Saved from my sister's phone. He had destroyed all copies, never imagining that I, the victim, still had one. Garrett had spent months preparing for the wedding. He'd specially ordered a diamond ring and wedding dress from France. He was so full of anticipation, even ridiculously insisting on the traditional wedding car ritual. He put me in another villa and came to collect me in his luxury car. He made it so grand, announcing to everyone in City S that I was his wife. I played the video at the wedding. All the guests fell silent while I laughed on the wedding stage. Garrett smashed all the wedding screens. In his fury, he even wanted to shoot the person who played the video. The wedding was completely ruined. Garrett, in his tuxedo, asked me with red eyes, "Can't we start over?" I pointed at the video and asked with a laugh, "What do you think?" Garrett's eyes were now uncontrollably red as he asked, "What am I supposed to do now?" Then, Garrett slowly crouched down, covering his face, howling like a wounded beast as tears streamed through his fingers. At this moment, he was no longer the cold and ruthless Garrett Dean, but a broken boy who had lost everything he loved. In this moment, Garrett lost all his dignity. Garrett had become the laughingstock of City S, though no one dared to mock him to his face. I ignored Garrett, and he tried various ways to win me back. He gave me his credit card to buy jewelry and clothes. I didn't want to go at first, but then I thought I might as well spend his money since he offered. The more I could waste, the better. During our Cold War, I went jewelry shopping alone, knowing Garrett would have his security team watching me. I recognized all their faces. Afraid of angering me, Garrett had sent Henry to follow me instead. Henry was supposed to be working at the register office, but he didn't dare refuse Garrett. So he timidly followed behind me, trying not to be noticed. I spotted him anyway. Feeling annoyed, I called him over and said, "Garrett asked you to follow me, right? Well, you might as well stop hiding and come shopping with me properly." I was deliberately trying to provoke Garrett. The more he tried to keep me away from other men, the closer I got to them. Henry hung his head, not daring to say anything. I casually handed him the receipt, saying, "Go and pay with the card." Henry took the receipt to make the payment. After hurriedly paying, he ran back to show me the receipt. Though I generally disliked anyone associated with Garrett, I took the receipt carelessly but suddenly froze. There was a small piece of paper attached to the back of the receipt. It read, "I know you hate Garrett too. Please help me." I quickly looked up at Henry. His face still wore that meek and timid expression, but his eyes were unusually bright. Looking into those eyes, I carefully crumpled the paper and slipped it into my sleeve, then subtly nodded. Garrett's security guards were waiting outside the shop. I said, "Henry, I want to buy clothes for Garrett. You're about his size, try these on so I can see how they look." Henry nodded nervously. After he went into the fitting room, I walked toward the restroom direction, then used the blind spot to slip into the fitting room. In the narrow fitting room, I could hear Henry's steady breathing. I lowered my voice and asked, "What's this note about?" "I attended your wedding with Garrett." That's when I realized we're on the same side. I'm an undercover police officer. We're investigating Garrett's connections with criminals, but we need evidence to arrest him. Henry spoke briefly, his timid demeanor completely gone, replaced by determination and composure. "I feel the same way. I want Garrett dead more than anything. What do you need me to do?" I asked. Henry asked hesitantly. "According to my investigation, Garrett has an important deal in a week. Could you try to go with him?" Henry spoke uncertainly, knowing that while Garrett was fond of me, he couldn't guarantee Garrett would take me along. Garrett was extremely cautious. Without evidence, we couldn't arrest Garrett. I had to find a way to get to the transaction site. Arguing with Garrett like this wouldn't solve anything, so I had to back down first. I asked Henry to buy 2 bottles of wine, which I laced with sedatives. Garrett had a high alcohol tolerance and rarely got drunk. That evening, I waited for Garrett on the sofa when he came home. Garrett crept in carefully, trying not to disturb me. He was startled to see me and asked, "Why aren't you in bed?" I frowned and said, "Why are you home so late?" My tone was impatient and angry. Henry said men tend to seek comfort from other women during Cold Wars. Is that what you've been doing? I stood up and grabbed his tie, my voice hostile. Garrett, you've ruined me, and now you're seeing other women? My accusations left Garrett stunned, but he quickly understood my meaning. Instead of getting angry, he was pleased. He held my hands and said, Doris, you're heartless. You're the only one for me. I squirmed in his arms, still acting upset. How would I know? You're Garrett Dean after all. I sniffed his clothes. Smells like cheating. Seeing me act like a kitten, Garrett burst out laughing. He hugged me and said, Doris, you're jealous. I love it. I ignored him and reached for the poured wine on the table, pretending to drown my sorrows. Garrett's long arm snatched the wine glass away. He frowned. You're pregnant, don't drink. He drank the wine in one gulp. I reached for it again, and Garrett teased me by holding the glass between his teeth. I pretended to throw a tantrum and grabbed the wine bottle, drinking directly from it. Garrett's expression changed instantly. His face darkened as he tried to pry my mouth open, but I quickly kissed him. All the wine went into his mouth. Up close, I could see the fine hair on Garrett's face, his pupils dilated like a dazed snake. Garrett called me a little troublemaker while holding me tight. I enthusiastically let Garrett carry me to the bedroom. After this, Garrett and I reconciled, returning to our former intimacy. I started acting jealous and suspicious. Surprisingly, Garrett quite enjoyed it. 2 days later, I suddenly felt stomach pain while going down the stairs and fell. I desperately tried to grab something, but ended up with 3 stitches in my arm. Henry took me to the hospital. When Garrett saw me, his heart nearly broke. He said angrily, I'll have that staircase blown up, and those bodyguards, what were they doing? I said, it's your fault. My stomach suddenly hurt, definitely because of what you did the other night. Garrett felt guilty. He gently rubbed my belly and said carefully, I'm sorry. Garrett tormented me like this during the first 3 months of pregnancy. When Garrett asked the doctor, he was nearly cursed out. What kind of husband are you? Don't you know there should be no intercourse in the first trimester? Lucky the mother-to-be is all right. If anyone else had scolded Garrett like that, he might have shot them. But this time, he meekly lowered his head and apologized like a schoolboy who'd done something wrong. Garrett made a mistake, and he was feeling guilty. When he told me he needed to go away for a while, I pretended to be angry. I'm coming with you. Garrett looked troubled, but I wouldn't let it go. I'm pregnant, and how do I know you won't cheat on me during this time? We're married now, there shouldn't be anything I can't be part of. I am Mrs. Dean, after all, I said, lifting my chin. The title Mrs. Dean made Garrett beam with joy. He took me to the drug trafficking scene. He was cautious when we arrived and confiscated my phone. But what he didn't know was that the undercover officer had given me a listening device, hidden in my brooch. The red rose brooch was a gift from Garrett. He had it custom made in France at great expense, never imagining that his token of affection would become the weapon to bring him down. The criminals froze when they saw me, showing their displeasure and growing restless. Garrett glared, and his men drew their weapons. His face turned stern as he declared firmly, This is my wife. If you respect me, you respect her. If you respect me, you respect her. After those words, they calmed down and proceeded with business as usual. I played the role of the devoted wife, leaning against Garrett's side. Halfway through, I yawned and deliberately called out, Garrett. He leaned slightly towards me, lowering his voice. Doris, we'll be done soon. I didn't want you to come because I knew you'd be bored. I huffed, absently playing with his fingers. While Garrett maintained his composure, his ears turned bright red. Despite being a ruthless killer, he was acting like a shy schoolboy. Every word of the conversation was recorded in my brooch. Back home, I carelessly tossed the brooch aside. Henry would find a way to retrieve it. With the evidence collected, the arrest operation began. Garrett had ruled City S for years, causing countless harm. And finally, justice was catching up to him. At night, I was awakened by violent shaking. Opening my eyes, I found Garrett lifting me up. His face showed no panic, but he held his gun and spoke with authority. Doris, come with me. Before I could speak, he gripped my wrist with one hand, forcefully making me follow him. I knew the police were coming for Garrett. His behavior suggested he had a backup plan, and I couldn't let him escape. Garrett quickly put my shoes on and pulled me towards his study. In the study, he opened the safe. Instead of taking jewels as I expected, he tucked the paper rose into his chest pocket. Then, gripping my hand tightly, he rushed us to the garage. The SUV was new, with bulletproof windows. As I got in, explosions erupted behind us. Looking back, I saw our mansion erupting in violent blasts. Self-destruct system, Garrett explained. In the SUV, Garrett steered us towards the forest village 5 miles away. In the dark car, only his heavy breathing could be heard. We couldn't drive into the forest itself. Garrett opened the door and helped me out. Looking up, I saw a vast forest before us. The subtropical climate meant tall trees that blocked out the sky. Garrett led me through the forest. He said, "The border's just ahead. We'll escape the country." Garrett didn't ask why the police were after him. He seemed to understand everything. He glanced at me, his eyes full of bitterness. "I'm now wanted in the country, Doris. You're coming with me. You owe me that much." The forest was sweltering, the path covered in branches, roots, and thick mud. It was difficult terrain, and with my poor health, I was breathless after a short distance. I sat down, refusing to continue, but Garrett picked me up onto his back. His broad shoulders carried my weight. Each step heavy as his shoes cracked the twigs beneath. Resting against his back, I asked, "Garrett, how long until we get there?" 2 days, he replied. "I'll carry you." "I'm not tired." Garrett carried me through the night. In the evening, he pulled out a chocolate bar and placed it in my hand. Just one chocolate bar, the same one I'd casually slipped into his pocket yesterday. "What will you eat?" I asked him. Wiping sweat from his brow, he said, "I'm not hungry." Due to the prolonged lack of food and water, Garrett's lips were dry and cracked. In the moonlight, his face showed no complaint, only determination mixed with tenderness. I anxiously calculated when the police might find us. Would Garrett really manage to escape? Suddenly, a bird took flight, startled, its harsh cry piercing the air near my ear. Urgent footsteps echoed in the distance. Garrett's expression changed. He quickly scooped me up and ran towards the distance. The police had found us. Bang! The shot jolted me awake. Garrett quickly shielded me, his shoulder jerking as the bullet struck his right side. Several torch beams suddenly blazed in our direction, momentarily blinding me. Garrett used his good arm to shield my eyes. Through squinted eyes, I saw Garrett's twisted smile. What kind of smile was it? Desperate, cold, and vicious. "I underestimated you, Henry Fletcher. Thought you were a coward." Henry approached in his leather boots, pointing his gun at Garrett's head. "You underestimated justice," Henry said firmly, his expression resolute, his eyes steady. The metallic smell of blood filled my nostrils. Blood was seeping through Garrett's shirt at the shoulder. Trickling down and staining the paper rose pinned to his chest a tragic, deep red. Even now, Garrett wouldn't let go of my hand. Henry gestured for me to come to him. Garrett's dark eyes remained fixed on me. There was no surprise, no anger at being betrayed, no cursing. Just that steady gaze. He asked softly, "Now you've got your revenge." Before I could speak, Garrett asked, "Did you ever love me?" His lips were pressed tight, seeming both eager and dreading my answer. I bit my lip, but Garrett didn't wait for my response. He gave a bitter laugh, as if he already knew the answer. He seemed to relax then, his tense shoulders slumping slightly. Suddenly, Garrett raised his left hand. He had somehow transferred the gun from his right hand. I remembered how skilled he was with both hands. I moved to grab his hand, but Garrett quickly pointed it at my forehead. His lips trembling, face desperate, Garrett said, "Doris, I'll kill you first. Will you die with me?" I became still and replied calmly, "Yes." I knew Garrett wouldn't kill me. At the end of his life, he pointed at me, wanting me to say no like I used to. "Doris, will you marry me?" "No." "Doris, shall we build a life together?" "No." "Doris, please don't die." This time, Garrett didn't want to hear yes. Garrett wouldn't let me die because he knew I'd never gotten over what happened to Effie. My first revenge was against Mabel, my second against him. And my third would be against myself. I was already prepared to die. He wanted me to live, wanted me to promise I wouldn't take my own life after his death. I deliberately defied his wish. As soon as I spoke, Garrett took a deep breath, his tone harsh and firm. Doris, don't you dare die. If you die, I'll haunt you in hell. With that, Garrett suddenly pushed me towards Henry. Henry's arms caught me. Standing beside Henry, I watched Garrett sitting against the tree opposite us. He'd lost so much blood, his face pale, like a trapped beast. Yet his striking broken eyebrow remained furrowed. He stared at me and shouted, Doris, close your eyes. Fletcher, cover her eyes. Before I could speak, Henry's hand firmly covered my eyes. In the darkness, I heard a bang. Then Henry turned me around, still covering my eyes. I heard murmuring voices, someone saying quietly, Garrett Dean is dead. I forced myself to smile as Henry's hand rested on my shoulder. He said, Doris, you're crying.